Well, things aren't looking good, folks. Now, I'm gonna say this right at the start of this video. If you're having fun with Forza Motorsport, if you're enjoying yourself, more power to you. Keep on having fun and click off this video. I'm not here to take anybody's fun away, but in this video, I do want to talk about the current state of motorsport and the recent announcements in the competitive community, and give my own take on the current and future state of the game and franchise as a whole in this very unscripted rant. Let's dive in. So I've kind of had the idea for a video like this brewing in my mind for a little while, but just haven't really wanted to make it because, it would be kind of a downer of a video. And I like making positive content. I like being excited about things and sharing that joy with you guys in videos. But two announcements that were made yesterday kind of pushed me over the edge and made me realize that willfully ignoring and choosing not to cover this stuff is just doing more harm in the long run. So yesterday, Racing Haven and Tora, two of the biggest competitive organizations in the Forza franchise, pulled out of motorsport, both delivering statements that they were done hosting events for the game for the time being at least. This really sucks to see, but it doesn't come as a surprise. I think probably everyone in the competitive community saw this coming. The game is just not ready to support even somewhat more casual competitive racing leagues. And as someone who organized and managed my own competitive league for Horizon with an amazing team beside me, I have a pretty decent insight as to how incredibly challenging it is to run these events. And that's when everything in the game is working how it should. When you have to start dealing with server instability, major bugs and exploits, and the lack of supporting features like spectator modes and working replays, that makes event management impossible. And like Racing Haven smartly said, it completely takes away the value of winning. I think RH and Tora were up against an impossible challenge, and I completely understand and support them for pulling out of motorsport and waiting until the game is more ready. And, sadly, this of course means that a lot of the competitive community, without anything to compete in, are going to leave. And, you might say, okay, that's not that big of a deal. Motorsport is kind of the more casual sim anyway, and can survive off of a casual player base. But the problem with this is that the competitive community, even though it is genuinely a small fraction of the player base, is still kind of the canary in the coal mine, if you will. For those that haven't heard that before, basically what I'm saying is that they're the warning light that something is wrong and that more player fall off is likely coming. The competitive community might be small, but they still influence a very large percentage of the player base as a whole. And as word continues to spread that competitive players are leaving, well, that's going to cause more casual players to leave too. And you can see this in the data. Now, before I bring up some Steam chart data, I need to preface this by saying Steam only makes up a portion of the player base as a whole. I think especially for motorsport, a ton of people are just playing on Game Pass, and we just don't really have any data to see how many people are playing the game through Xbox. So all we can look at is Steam. But again, this gives us a pretty good window into the current state of the game. Now, with that said, you can see that not only is Forza Motorsport struggling to hit even 1,000 concurrent players on Steam, they didn't even have a big launch to start with. Heck, we can compare it against Horizon 4 and 5, which also both exist on Game Pass and are much more popular on Xbox. And here you can see that Horizon 5 pretty much tops the charts for daily concurrent players on Steam in a racing game. And it's regularly hitting 10 to 15,000 players at a time every single day, and also launched with a concurrent peak of over 80,000. If you look back on Horizon 4, you can see this game had a pretty strong launch as well, with a peak of 40,000 players on Steam, and currently has an average daily concurrent player base of around 5 to 10,000. So Horizon 4, now a 5-year-old game with a direct sequel, is 10 times more popular than the brand new Forza Motorsport. If you look at the overall charts here for racing games played on Steam, Forza Motorsport is all the way down here, and it's continuing to drop. while other games like BeamNG or AMS2 are experiencing huge new influxes of players. To be clear, some player drop-off after launch is certainly normal, but when your Steam player base is already struggling to hit 1,000, those drops just feel more and more significant. Honestly, you can notice this just by playing the game. If you play online, you'll realize that you're regularly getting grouped with a pretty small subset of players, because there just aren't that many people playing online at any given time. Especially if you factor in skill and safety rating and location. There just isn't a big enough pool of players at any given time to create a variety of good matchups. And that makes the online worse, which makes people less likely to play it, which makes the pool smaller, which makes the online worse, which makes people less likely to play it. It's a vicious cycle. But okay, we've kind of focused a lot on the competitive and online experience. What about Motorsport's single player? Well, it doesn't look much better here either. The career mode doesn't have the lasting potential, and you can see in the achievement data that a lot of people are just not making it that far into the career. The motivation isn't there. So even though there are new races and cars coming to the game every month, that's just not doing enough to bring players back. Even on the creative side of things, people who really enjoy making liveries are struggling to enjoy motorsport because many people still can't import their creations over from past games. And the livery editor continues to have more and more issues, even with brand new cars. I mean, look at the UV map for this. How is anyone supposed to create a good-looking livery when the designer is making you deal with this? So the game just isn't really working for the competitive scene. It doesn't seem to have enough interest to hold the single-player crowd, and even the creatives are just finding that it might not be worth their time to create content for Motorsport. I'll say from my perspective that I really haven't had much motivation to create or even play the game myself. Heck, I've barely touched it over the past month. And I mean, if you've watched my channel, you know I'm not making a lot of videos on it. Instead, I've gone back to play Gran Turismo 7 and Assetto Corsa, and of course Horizon 5, which have all just had a lot more time to cook. Now, I never actually reviewed Motorsport when it came out, but in my early thoughts video, I said that I thought it was a platform with potential. I said that there were definitely some good core systems worth focusing on, and that even though it might not be worth the price tag now, in a couple years it might actually become one of the best casual or console sims out there. I want to revisit that, because in that early thoughts video, I had no idea just how buggy and broken the game would be on launch. But once the larger player base got their hands on it and the significant wealth of game-breaking bugs started to make themselves more known, and as I spent more time with the game and was running into bugs and crashes myself, well, it's just become more and more apparent how far Motorsport really has to go to become the game that I, and probably many others, want it to be. For any other Motorsport release, it'd be easy to say, well, okay, this one was a flop, but in 2 years, we're gonna get another. They can try again. But that's not the case here. This is supposed to be the Motorsport for the generation. You know, it's not Motorsport 8, this is the one and only Forza Motorsport for the foreseeable future, and it's failing. There's not another game in the pipeline. Turn 10 has to make this one work, and they have been patching it and putting out community updates and addressing problems on the monthly live streams. You know, every month we get big patches that not only add content like new cars and tracks, but also, of course, fix bugs, which I think is a bigger focus right now. I just don't think they can abandon the game, because what else are they gonna do? They spent 6 years on this platform, and it's all they've got. But I worry that the mountain of work that Turn 10 probably needs to put into this game is just not something that really any studio could accomplish in a reasonable amount of time. Realistically, I think it takes 2 years minimum before Motorsport actually becomes at least mostly the game that I want it to be. I'm just not sure that they're gonna get that time. I mean, from a financial perspective, the game is probably not selling much right now. The word is out, people aren't buying Motorsport. If anything, they're just checking it out for free-ish on Game Pass, and the studio might not be able to support itself for the amount of time it's gonna take to make the game good enough that it starts generating some real revenue. So I don't know what's actually going on. These are all just guesses, but I'm guessing that there are some major alarm bells going off over there at Turn 10, and I feel for them, man. This doesn't just suck for the players, it sucks for the dev team too. And I just hope that we don't lose another amazingly talented studio. Like I said though, it's clear they're trying to make things work. The game is getting regular big updates, and they just put out an announcement 2 days ago that they're going to focus heavily on the AI, race regulations, and car progression system, which have been some of the biggest issues the community has raised. But again, I just worry that the players are leaving faster than Turn 10 can fix the game. I think they've got this year, 2024, to make some major improvements, but other big games are around the corner. You know, I don't want to get my hopes too high, especially because we haven't heard much about it, but AC2 could absolutely dominate the sim market. Heck, even GT7 on PC this year would crowd out Motorsport. Not that I think that's happening. So if Motorsport's gonna succeed, in my eyes, here's my sort of 1-year roadmap. First, they need to focus on bug and exploit fixes. This is of course key for competitive racing, but also valuable for the casual player base. The guys from Racing Haven and Tora have both brought up the invisible car issue, and I briefly chatted with a couple RH guys who brought up the skybox and track rubbering inconsistencies, pit lane problems, and other multiplayer bugs largely surrounding qualifying, and much more. So bugs first, get the game working how it's supposed to. Fix that replay mode, get the cars balanced and the PI system worked out. Then, 2 big features I want to see are 1, a spectate mode, again hugely important for competitive racing, and 2, actually a better crew chief that actually gives you useful in-race advice, alongside being a spotter and radar for you. Have her say that there's a car on your left and to hold your line, and then say when you're clear. Have her estimate how many laps are left on your tires, or give you info on your opponents, like who just boxed or how close the driver behind is, and if they're gaining. You know, a lot of the stuff that the UI already tells you, but with someone in your ear telling it to you, so you can clear up that UI clutter and focus on the race and be more aware of the drivers around you. I think it would be a big, cool addition to have that crew chief or race engineer as an official in-game feature. And finally, implement better peripheral support and camera options. Better triple and ultra-wide support, seat position adjustment, virtual mirror for all cameras, stuff like that. It is ridiculous that wheel players, and well, anyone who uses the driver cams, are put at a significant disadvantage compared to people who play in third person. At least give them the tools to have that same level of awareness like they do in pretty much every other sim racing game. And that's it. Of course, this list is going to be very opinionated, and realistically, this list barely scratches the surface of the massive amount of things the community as a whole wants to see, but I just want to throw out my own roadmap in hopes that it does help, because I do think T10 is listening. Right now, they don't have the option not to. I think it's certainly possible to accomplish this all within a year, and then maybe by, holiday 2024, we'll have a game that's worth playing again, and something that Racing Haven and Tora can feel comfortable hosting events for. But for now, I'll keep checking back in and jumping into the occasional race here and there, and advocating for improvements to the game. There's so much that I didn't even bring up today, like the lack of communication between devs and competitive organizations, recent false bans, graphical shortcomings, and missing features, cars, and tracks from previous games. There's unfortunately a lot that could be talked about here, but at the end of the day, we all just want the game that we were sold. A game that delivers on the promise that this would reignite the franchise and take it back to its roots. And I want to give Turn 10 the benefit of the doubt that they can turn it around in time, but the clock is ticking. Alright, I know this was totally a bummer of a video, and I just want everyone to understand that this really does come from a place of love Forza is a very important franchise to me. I've literally played every single Forza game that exists, and I've been playing them essentially since the start. I want motorsport to succeed, and I want to have fun in the game. So, I don't know, let me know what you all think of the roadmap. I fully expect people to disagree with me on certain aspects of it, which is totally fine, but I appreciate you listening to me rant either way, and I'll see you all in the next video.